Alrighty, welcome to the War Corps broadcast. We are broadcasting here from this channel thanks to fucking Cynthia G's fucking ballless follower who reported my fucking video and fucked up live streaming on War Corps 666 till October. But I'm here. I'm joined with Mike. We're going to be a little bit later in the program. We're going to be debating a few things on the Civil War. Basically, I think I'm going to let him ask me questions, and then I'll respond. Mike, say hi so everyone knows you're still alive.
Yeah, what's going on? Thanks for having me on, War Corps. Big fan of you, big subscriber for years. Thank you for having me on. Glad to work with you today.
All right, no problem. All right, first thing I do want to talk about today is I got into a tete-a-tete with an Australian feminist. If you've watched my channel, I made this video about that feminist coffee shop that charges men like 20% more to make up for this mythical wage gap. And I got into it with her. It was literally one of the funniest things I have ever seen, because literally with logic, I kept defeating her arguments, and then she kept trying to steer I had to steer the conversation back. Normally, I'm one of these people that likes a meandering conversation, and it goes where it goes. This was one where, no, you started this fight thinking you had the fucking moral high ground and the logical high ground, and I basically proved with simple logic that, no, you don't. And there's reasons men earn more than women. There's reasons for the earnings gap, but that's entirely based upon women's choices. And literally, the best part of it came at about 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock this morning, when she sent me a tweet of an article. And the second paragraph in literally said that they did this over like 40 fucking professions. Now, my friend Mike was in the military, and you may back me up on this. Now, military is not the most lucrative career in the world, but you usually retire fairly well off because you're not paying for a whole lot.
Correct.
I didn't.
Yes, you're spot on. You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The thing is that women typically take less stressful careers, aka less money, and then spend a lot more. There's a reason why at the end of the day there's a 70 or 30, and finally I got to admit, well, if you take everything into consideration, it's like 9. It's like, no, it's actually like 2. But that 2% is because men negotiate. So if you do want to see the whole Twitter tete-a-tete with it, and it was just her getting more and more desperate, and her just relying on this. Well, women do a vast majority of the household chores, and that's unpaid. And it's like, what world are you living in where the guy just comes home and he's got a wife and kids at home and he crashes with a cold beer in the recliner? That might be his fantasy, but that's not reality. When I was a kid, Dad couldn't crash in the recliner. He had to take his kids to places X, Y, and Z because Mom had been running around all day and Mom needed to get dinner. Like, I don't know what world she's living in where guys just don't do household chores. Also, there are guy chores. And when I brought this up, because she knew she was beat on it, because usually men do the physically demanding household chores, mowing the lawn, household repairs. She basically said, well, it'll never compare to giving birth to a child. And it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, really, you're going with that cop-out? And yeah, that was my morning on Twitter. Oh shit! Did I have anything else to get to?
So let me ask you with that, right? So
All right, go ahead.
the feminists, the women, they say they want to be treated equally, right? And that they do the work and they're underpaid. So in the military, you get paid by your rank, right? So everyone gets paid the same amount, right?
Yes. As far as
Okay.
I know.
Now, so let me ask you this personal question. You tell me if this is fair. Why, as a man, when I was in the Marine Corps, for example, we have to do a PFT every year, physical fitness test. We have to do 2 of them. Why are our standards higher than theirs? Meaning, we do our run. Theirs is less. In other words, the standard is less. Whether it's pull-ups, running, which they don't even really have to do pull-ups, crunches. Every standard we have is higher than theirs. So you tell me how that's fair. How they're doing less work. They're not as strong as us. They're not as fast as us. And even if they were as strong or as fast as us, they have a lower standard. I would like someone to explain that to me, how that's fair and that's being equal. So in other words, when you want certain privileges, you want the privileges. When it's convenient for you to be equal and complain, it's convenient for you to be equal and complain. And in the military, the highest physical standard you need out of any job, probably, besides maybe police officer or a professional athlete, they literally, it's in paper, it's in writing, they do not have to perform at the same standard that men do. Yet, they get paid the same amount at equal rank.
Yeah.
Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that brought up another thing. It's this insane PC culture where we have to have a certain number of women in every field, and it's for fields they're not suited for, like firemen. Women couldn't carry the hoses up in a acceptable time, so they just eliminated it for women. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm in a burning building. I need somebody capable of saving my sorry ass. You're a Marine. You may be called upon to fight. Women aren't as good at fighters as men. I mean, yeah, they can shoot a gun, but if you get into close combat, you get into like hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, it's a different game then.
Yeah, because I mean, and then when does it end? Because it's like, bottom line is, you can't have women. You can't expect women to perform as physically well as men, and when the job requires physicality, I'm sorry, dear feminists, you don't measure up. It's just, men are bigger, men are stronger, we can run faster. Now, does this mean I can go out on the tennis court and kick Serena Williams' ass at tennis? No. But if I put her with the 300th ranked male tennis person, he beat the shit out of her. And
they love that Serena Williams excuse. Whenever you bring up something physical, they're like, well, you can't beat Serena Williams at tennis. Well, you know what? I'm not a fucking professional tennis player. She is. You know what I mean? It's a stupid argument.
But here's the thing. I can't beat Ronda Rousey, but I bet you $20 you could. That because of your training.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, I'll just go back to Fallon Fox. Fallon Fox was a guy for 20 years. He transitioned into a woman. He started fighting in female MMA, and it was bad. Like, it literally looked like domestic abuse, not an actual contest.
Oh yeah, I read females. They're like, I've never been hit so hard in my life. And when he fought female fighters.
No shit, because he's a guy, and I don't care how cosmetically good we get at it. At the end of the day, you got a Y chromosome rolling around your DNA. So, I guess, you know what? I'll postpone questions till the end of the thing. Let's just get into the Civil War thing, because I absolutely baked myself early this morning shooting my emancipation documentary, and it turned out like shit. But you wanted to debate a few points on the Civil War. So go ahead. Floor is yours.
Yeah. Now I got to do my heel turn, huh? Yeah. Right. We were getting along so well.
It's not a heel turn. We're just and honestly, I even thought some of my points that I brought up, I was like, I should have taken time to explain things a little better. So, but no, it's a debate. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, look, you're a passionate guy. I'm a passionate guy. The one thing that really like triggered me, and it's a new thing, and I've seen it come up a lot, and I don't know why it's coming up. This whole idea that there were, and maybe you could clarify what you meant by that before I, go in. This idea that there were Confederate soldiers that actually fought for the Confederacy. Now, what I mean by that is that they were actually commissioned by Jefferson Davis. They were sworn in Confederate soldiers. That never happened. Now, it was going to happen, but, Jefferson Davis literally said, one of his generals, I forgot what it was, they needed more. It's no secret that they were out. We would agree on that the North had way more troops than the South. We could agree on that basic fact, right?
Yes.
We could agree on that. Okay. So he came to him and he said, hey, we need more troops. We're going to have to commission, black troops, African American, whatever it is that they called them. And Jefferson Davis turned to him and he said to him, and he said, if we can commission them as soldiers, then everything we said about them was wrong. Now, because a couple people made comments like, oh, well, there was fun. Now, obviously, right, Union troops come on a plantation. There's slaves there. Did they pick up a gun and shoot Union troops? Yeah. The Atlanta campaign, right? Sherman's Atlanta campaign. They're tearing up the South. They're tearing up Atlanta. Slaves are joining them up north. Did a slave pick up a gun and maybe shoot it along the way? Yeah, but it didn't happen. It was gonna happen. You won't find it. You guys could search it on your own. You're not gonna find a regiment, a platoon of black Confederate slave soldiers. Now, somebody also said something about a secret society. That's bullshit. I mean, I can't for the life of me see that of ever happening, that Jefferson Davis would commission a secret troop of Confederate slaves as a secret platoon, because war wasn't fought like how it is fight today, right? They lined up, they shot. They're not doing special ops. They're not ejecting from helicopters. None of that stuff is going on. But so whatever you want to, where you're coming from with that.
Well, okay, I'm going to post a link in the chat, and it's to a photo of the 1st Louisiana, which was black Confederate soldiers. Here's where I'm at with that, if you want to know. Look, the South was in a real predicament because the abolitionist movement was growing in the South. Slavery, honestly, if the South had won the war, the slavery would have ended in about 30 to 40 years. Truth be told. God damn it, I lost my train of thought. The son of a bitch. God damn it, I hate it when I lose my train of thought. Fuck, I'm just dead now. Fuck. Okay, all right. The secessionist movement was growing in the South. Slavery would have ended in about 30 years-ish. Yes, I will admit I was wrong to say this war wasn't totally or totally not about slavery, but it was the linchpin of the Southern economy. Like, the whole frickin' fucking thing collapsed without it. But in reality, most of the Southerners fought for a state's right to govern as it should versus slavery. And there were free black men in the South, and they fought. I don't know. I have completely lost my train of thought on this.
The only thing I'll say is I didn't see the picture. There was hundreds of there was not, if that, I'm not disputing that picture was taken What I'm saying is there was never, it was not commissioned. If that was the group of soldiers that was going to fight, they never took the battlefield. It was never commissioned. It's the same thing where now in 1862, this is when the war, was only a year in or so. They were the generals in the South. Lincoln's generals were going and freeing slaves. And I know the first regiment that was called. It was the first all-black regiment called the First Carolina. First South Carolina Volunteers. And again, Lincoln didn't recognize it. So did a group of Confederates, for whatever reason, slaves in the South, or maybe some free blacks that were in the South, did they maybe get together and try to organize something? Yeah, but what I'm saying is there was no official, slave. That's just insane. No official slave. And to your point, you got to understand something. Another thing that people throw out, well, there were free slaves in the black. Yeah, but the free slaves in the South at any given time, that could have changed. They didn't have the right to vote. They didn't have the right to marry. They were still property. If you're familiar, going way back, right? I'm going back because this is where the Civil War. That was the other point, and you were half right. I think I blew up. You said, well, Lincoln was a warmonger, and there was nothing less that he wanted to do was have a war this long and have this many people die. You know what I mean? If you really go back to when things started heating up, you can look at, I mentioned it before in some of your old videos. If you look at the Compromise of 1850, right? Part of that was also something called the Fugitive Slave Act, meaning it was required by law that if someone found a slave, be it in the North, be it in the South, wherever, that you have to return the slave. Now, this is an argument that South Carolina made when they succeeded. They said, well, you're not, our slaves are getting loose and you guys aren't returning them and blah, blah, blah. So that doesn't make any sense. So in other words, you want to obey the Constitution. You want to obey the federal government when it's convenient for you. As I make in other arguments, you can't have it both ways. Either, hey, you want to be a part of the Union, you're part of the United States, or you're not. Not, oh, well, we don't want to do what you say. We want our slavery. Oh, but by the way, you have to hold your end of the bargain. And if slaves escapes, you have to return them. And, it's just, it's crazy. And by the way, federal marshals were able to capture runaway slaves with this Fugitive Slave Act. You know what I mean? It was just, it's crazy. Oh, and by the way, let's say a captured slave was captured, right? Let's say I say, hey, you, Billy, I found you in Massachusetts. I know you're a slave. I know your owner's in South Carolina. He has to go to court, right? This isn't just whatever. He goes to court. The slave can't testify. Oh, and by the way, I'll give you a better scenario. A free black in Boston, and somebody doesn't like him. I accuse, hey, Billy, because this guy, I don't know, I saw him, stealing something. I don't know. I don't like this guy for whatever reason. I say, hey, Billy's a slave. The federal marshals pick him up, take him to court, right? He goes to court. He can't testify because he doesn't have any rights, even though he's a free black in the North. I accuse him of being a slave. If the judge awards that he's a runaway, the judge gets $10. If the judge says, no, he's not, the judge only gets $5. What do you think the judge is going to do?
Okay.
And that's just one small thing, this Fugitive Slave Act, this Fugitive Slave Law. It just, it just speaks to how big a problem slavery was. And this is, years before Lincoln even this is 10 years before Lincoln got elected. And also, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
All right. Let me speak on the South. If you were a poor white in the South, aka not part of the 1% or 2% that actually owned slaves, you were little better off than a slave. 2, most Northerners ignored that. The whole bring the slaves back across the line. 3, none of what you said applied to the 4 slave states that remained loyal to the goddamn Union.
Those were no. I know what you're saying. Those I'll let you finish and then I'll respond to that.
You know, the thing is fuck it. I'm finished. I think I've actually done my points. I thought I had another one, but no.
Well, all right. I'll speak to the border states. The border states were very strategic, and Missouri specifically, that was part of the Kansas-Nebraska Act. There's no slaves above the parallel, and also Missouri was the gateway to the West. Delaware honestly wasn't that important. Maryland was very important because DC is right there. You know what I mean? It was very, very important for Lincoln to have that state, and obviously Kentucky. Also gateway to the Ohio River, which was very important for him. So see, Lincoln was very, very smart. We could go back all day where you rank him as a good president, but I mean, he was very smart. Those were very strategic states. And I do want to discuss real quickly.
Actually, I can debate Lincoln's intelligence. Lincoln could have avoided the whole frickin' fucking Civil War, saved 800,000 lives. All he would have had to do is leave the South and say, you know what? We're not trading with you. And the South would have collapsed.
Okay, well here's the problem with that, right? Okay, we all know, we agree on this, right? The Emancipation Proclamation didn't free any slaves. It was a political move. It was BS. It was very much akin to the Declaration of Independence of the colonies saying, we're a new country when no one acknowledged them. Now, here's
okay. But
yeah,
the states that succeeded, obviously the Emancipation Proclamation isn't popular, but in the northern states it was almost even less popular.
No, yeah, New York. I want to speak. One, a lot of New Yorkers turned in blacks and Africans. New Yorkers, you got to remember, all the draft rights, the immigrants, free blacks were competing with whites for jobs. I mean, that's a whole nother topic for another day. I mean, it was very hostile in New York. I mean, New York City was incredibly hostile. But I mean, avoiding the war. I mean, that could be. Where was I getting at? Yeah, okay. So the emancipation, you brought it up, and you brought up that the South wouldn't have survived, yada yada. Here's the thing, right? Lincoln got pressured by Horace Greeley, who he ran the New York Tribune. I can't equivalent him to anybody today because we have so much different media, but that was like when Walter Cronkite called out Lyndon B. Johnson and said, "You're never going to win Vietnam." He basically, because before the war, I agree, it was to restore the Union, but Lincoln had an idea. He's like, you know what? He's saying, his generals were pressuring him. They got together. I'm making a long story short. We need to be fighting about something else. And Lincoln had the Emancipation Proclamation already ready, a rough draft. Horace Greeley sends this letter to Lincoln, right? And basically bashes him like, you have an opportunity to free the slaves, yada, 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 yada. He would be considered super liberal today. Lincoln responds, and he doesn't tell me he has the Emancipation Proclamation because he was waiting to win a battle because they were getting their ass kicked up into their point.
Hold up. I actually have to take a bathroom break. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Well, the trademark of any war corpse debate: bathroom breaks.
Bathroom break, yeah. No, I'm getting to it. I'm rambling. Basically, so Lincoln responds to the letter. Okay, this is in August. Now, by September, McClellan, he beats, and that's rarely a victory. He wins the Battle of Antietam. Now, why this battle is so important is because up until this point, Europe did not know what they were going to do. And to go back 1 second to the compromise of 1850, part of that compromise was no slavery in D.C. because it just looked bad. We're supposedly supposed to be the free country, the land of the free, yada, 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 but we have slavery in our capital. Boom. That got banned too. So up until this point, Europe didn't know what they were going to do, right? A lot of people don't talk about this. They don't talk about it in history classes. Europe didn't know what they were going to do. After the North won that battle, Lincoln puts out the Emancipation Proclamation. Europe says, I'm out, right? They're like, I'm out. Fuck the South. I'm out. This isn't happening. They did it quietly, but they basically, so that was probably the first turning point in the war, because now, before it was, hey, I'm a Union. We're America. We want to keep America whole. The South is lying, telling people, oh, it's about states' rights. It's about this and this and that. But states' rights to do what? To own slaves. Then when Lincoln says, hey, listen, now we're fighting to free the slaves. It's not just about keeping the Union together. It's about, we're going to free the slaves, even though obviously that wasn't his intention at first. But politically, it was a great move because Europe's out. And at that point, could maybe have them came to some agreement? Probably not, because at this point, you got to understand something. This isn't like there's war going on in the West. And when I say the West, the Western states, there's war going on in Texas, up north. I mean, there's stuff. I mean, it's total chaos is going on at this point. And remember, we didn't have phones. Railroads were just recently developed. The telegraph they were using, for God's sakes. I mean, this was a nightmare at this point. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, the point of that was one, that if Europe was going to support the South, then Lincoln would have definitely have to kept fighting, that war if they were going to support him. Because if France or England came over, I mean, that's a whole nother fantasy war debate. But if that happened, things could have went bad. So what I'm saying is, eventually it got to the point where this thing was going to end badly. Like you say about World War II, and like we talk about with the left and right going on, it's going to end badly. Once you get so invested into something and so many lives are actually being lost, and your whole ideology, everything you're clinging on is whether you win this war or not. I feel at that point there was, there's no going back. Someone's going to win and someone's going to lose.
First off, it wasn't Europe. It was just England.
That's Europe. That's what I mean by Europe. I'm sorry.
Okay. But that's just one country at the time, a nation of powerful countries. Now today, Europe is two countries. It's Germany and England. But at the time, Europe was a number of world powers. Also, you forgot about the warship case. Now, the United States, after the Civil War, sought reparations from England because they did supply the South with warships to fight the Union blockade. And
correct.
This was the first time that actually national powers met and had a neutral, I think it was a neutral countries. Judges decided, I think it was like the Netherlands or something, and had said that, well, no, Britain, you actually do owe America some cash, but America, you must return Britain's ships or they owe you no cash. And the tale of the black soldier on the Union side isn't one of poetry and honestly, let's be clear here. The the movie Glory and the story of the 54th, while it is actually in and of itself is heroic, let's be honest, it's not the way the movie portrayed it. No Northerner was fighting for fucking black people. Maybe a few. I take that back. Maybe a few. But most of them were fighting for the Union. This notion that slavery was at the notion that at least Northerners were fighting to free blacks is a little absurd. Slavery might have been the central point of the Southern cause because it was the entire linchpin of their whole fucking economy. But the idea that Northerners gave a sauteed rat's ass about black people is a little absurd.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't insinuating. No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I wasn't. I'm not delusional. I wasn't trying to say that that's how they really felt. I'm just saying how it was spun. That's what I meant.
Well, it was. Here's the thing. It was also spun so fucking badly that Lincoln needed Gettysburg to get reelected. Otherwise, it wasn't going to happen. When he instituted the draft, the first draft we ever had in this country, there were riots up the ass. In fact, we've only had one peaceful draft in this entire nation's history, and that was World War II. Everything else has been accompanied with violent protests. Also, the war in Texas actually started about 1880, not 1860. But the God damn it, I lost what I was gonna say.
It's a big topic. It's a big topic. It's harder than I thought it was gonna be. It's just so much information. Yeah, go ahead.
But well, I also didn't start taking notes till just now, so I should have been doing that since the get-go. You know, I hate to say it, but the South couldn't have won the war no matter what. You know, there's no scenario, you know, like you said, you've watched my World War II videos and you've watched my live streams, and there's no way Hitler wins this war. There's no way the South wins.
No, it was a war of attrition. They, you know, the general, they knew, like, you know, we're gonna
you have
to wait it out.
Stormed Washington D.C. and gotten Southern independence. It's still, and I said Lincoln could have avoided the whole fucking war. All he would have to do, leave Fort Sumter, just place a trading embargo. They're dead.
Well, the problem with the Fort Sumter, see, the thing is,
and also I want to bring this point up. Yeah. The South couldn't have traded with anyone because Europe hated slavery more than the North did. You know, again, you have people in Maryland and New York and Massachusetts rioting because they don't want to fight for black people. So,
I mean, just to talk to this, Lincoln could listen. Lincoln did not want he didn't think this was going to be some huge, massive war. I mean, just hear me out. When he went to Fort Sumter, right?
Oh, no. They thought the fucking war would be over.
One big battle.
A picnic lunch. People actually packed picnic lunches to watch it.
And they're drinking a bottle of wine. They think this is going to be like a Broadway show. No, I got you. What I'm saying is, once we got to the point where, you know, once you got to Bull Run, and then then it's going on and on. But behind the story, behind the Fort Sumter thing, the problem is there were federal troops there. There were Union troops, and even Lincoln said, "Hey," he called the governor twice and said, "Listen, I'm just going to drop off some food, blah 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 blah." there's different reports as to whether the first time they talked, it went well or not. He reached out to them again. He reached out to the governor again and said, listen, I really supply them, yada, yada, yada. Was he baiting them? I don't know. There's no way to really prove if he was baiting them or not, but that's all that came down to. But more importantly than just that, there are some, historians that believe that the war actually started, that the fighting started in Kansas in 1857, not the Civil War per se, but, they're fighting over these slave states and these territories and the compromise. And it's, what I'm saying is the Civil War is inevitable. Now, we can go back and forth as to when it actually would have started, but it really started as soon as you have slaves. It started in 1619. Maybe it started at the Declaration of Independence. Maybe it started in the Constitution when they left slavery in. Although they didn't use the word slavery, they had the 3/5 compromise. Although they didn't say black people, that's who they were talking about. It could have started when they had the compromise 1850. The Kansas-Nebraska Act. It was going on and on. The Fugitive Slave Act, the confiscate, all this legislation was being passed by slavery. And you're right. All I'm saying is that, to put it so simply, if there was no slavery, there wouldn't have been a civil war. Now, I am not saying that the North or people in the North cared about saving slaves or anything like that. I know for a fact most of them didn't give a shit about black people. In fact, were angry they were in the North. That is all factually accurate. There's plenty of books on it. There's plenty of newspaper articles you can read. There's plenty of information about that. I'm not disputing that. All I'm saying is we can't say the bottom line is if there was no slavery, there's no Civil War, and that's it. Because for the South, that's all they had. That was their economy. That's like you said. Without that, it's nothing. That's all I'm saying. It's just a false narrative. Like, it's cool to be anti-American today. It's cool to go against the grain, whether you're on the right or the left. But the fact is, you know me, I'm concerned. I am not a liberal at all. I'm definitely more on the right. I'm independent. I don't like to get put in either camp. But let's just be real. It was about slavery. I mean, that's all. That's my main point.
Look, I'm not going to deny that slavery was a component of it because, again, as I said earlier in this debate, it was the linchpin to the Southern economy. But I would like to counter a couple of points you made. One, Lee did have a clear-cut, unopposed road right to D.C. where he could have surrounded the Capitol and basically won the fucking war after the first battle of Bull Run. Also, the Civil War was actually avoidable. I love this narrative where it's like the Civil War was unavoidable. Yes, it was. It was completely avoidable. Lincoln wanted. Lincoln did not want states to think they had the right to leave the Union. All he would have had to do was place a trading embargo on them. The European powers would have done it because they had slavery. And the South was fucked. The South had no industry. They had nothing.
The North made money from slavery, too. Let's not, gloss that over.
Okay, fine. Raw cotton, North, fine. Lincoln, in my opinion, he caused the Civil War because he couldn't just let it go.
Well.
To me, the Civil War was fought for one man's ego. And slavery, in and of itself, was unsustainable. Even if the South had won the war, let's say, and broken away, slavery would have been gone in 30 years at best.
Come on. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I don't like to make I don't.
There were strong abolitionist movements in the South.
But let me ask you this, right? At what point, you said it might end in 30. Well, how would it have just ended? Would they have just said, you know what? Fuck this. The hell with it. You guys are all free. You're all equal to us now. Now, and here's another thing, by the way. By the time the Civil War is going on, if you haven't heard, there's something called the Dred Scott case in 1857. right? Along with all this other stuff going on. He literally, the judge, Thaney, I think his name is, he literally said that black people are not equal, I'm paraphrasing, are not equal to white people, and they will never be citizens, they will never be free, boom. So, and the South had always looked down upon African Americans. What over the 30 years between 1860s and 1890 would, and remember, the Industrial Revolution didn't really kick off. We really didn't have, I mean, things didn't really kick off just yet. And in the South, I mean, come on, there's still, the South is still, you know, I don't want to bash them too much, but whatever. What would have happened that the Democrats that are pro-slavery, they didn't vote. By the way, 9 states didn't. That shows the electoral college system, by the way. 9 states didn't even have Lincoln on the ballot, and he still won the presidency, by the way, but that's another topic. What would have happened that the Democrats in the South would have said, you know what? Actually, you guys are equal to us. Fuck it. We're going to free you guys. Go ahead. You guys can go home.
I don't know if they would have said, you're equal to us. But
the South didn't make blacks equal to the 60s, for God's sake.
Again, Britain didn't make black people equal till, I don't know, the fucking 40s or the 50s.
The 65 and 67, the 2 Civil Rights Acts.
Okay. The thing is, Europe hated slavery. Slavery would have fucking ended. Okay, that you know, again, are you going to get rid of institutional racism overnight? No.
But that's what I'm saying. What incentive would they have had to get rid of slavery? Because if you want to
survive, you've got to, under my scenario, you've got a trading embargo with your northern neighbors. Okay, you can't trade with the people above the road. So now you've got to trade with people across a very great distance back in those times. Now, an ocean voyage isn't that big of a deal now with diesel-powered ships, but it was back in those days because you were powered by wind. So you have to make enough to make basically a twice a year payment worth it. So you have to keep your European neighbors happy, and they wouldn't trade with a slave nation, which is what the Confederacy was going to be. They would have collapsed, and the Southern economy had nothing else. The only thing they had was agriculture, and it was even agriculture damn near to a single textile, cotton. Now, yes, of course, the North profited off of the slave cotton trade, whatever the fuck. But we produced it into something useful. The problem is, all Lincoln would have had to do is say, okay, fine, do your own thing. We have a trade embargo on you. And the South would have collapsed in about 7 months instead of 4 years. Yeah, instead, he whipped them up into a fucking fervor of Southern pride, and he whipped them Yankees and all that other shit.
Well,
and caused 600,000 Americans to die.
Here's another. Here's another thing, right? So you were partially right. The figures about when they say only, quote, anywhere between 1% or 3% of the white population in the South owned a plantation, as in 20 plus slaves, which is very comparable to, you know, the billionaires today. It's very comparable, that number, because that was the business. But there was still another anywhere between 14 and 17% that also owned slaves, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, let's just say there was no Civil War. You know, what gave them? They weren't doing that for money. That's about, 14 to 17% of the South that owned slaves. Hey, they just have them for subsistence, right? I'm eating. They're, for them to live. You know what I mean? For the white people to live. So they would have no incentive, even if there was an embargo. They would, hey, still got these guys doing all my work. I still had this woman cooking all my food. You know, it's the same thing. And I don't.
Hold up. Let's go with your top number. Let's say 70% of white Southerners owned, let's say, 3
No,
black
17.
slaves.
No, 14 to 17. I didn't say.
I said,
okay.
Let's go with 70% owned slaves. And they owned, let's say, 3 slaves. Actually, fuck it, I'll go with 5 slaves. 4 men, 1 woman. You're honestly going to tell me at a farm back in 1860 that white guy also wouldn't have been working his ass off in the fields and barely making enough money to scrape by?
No, you're talking about this the poor white. If you can afford a slave, you ain't working. I mean, they were expensive.
Really? So he was just sitting on his ass.
Dave, I'll agree. Listen, this is what I'm trying to say. You're right. You're talking about most. I agree with you. I concede that fact. Most of the white Southerners in the South are what you're talking about. They were busting their ass all day long. I'm just talking about this small portion. I agree. It's a small portion. If you can own that many slaves, the master isn't working. You know, is he supervising and even then, do you know that they normally had? Do you know that the bigger plantations and even ones where maybe
Okay, so hold up.
Good.
You're a white master. You own 4 slaves, but your wife is infertile, meaning you have no kids. You're telling me that guy isn't working on an 1860s farm?
If someone has 5 slaves, that guy is I just want to. What do you mean by working? I don't want to be misrepresented here.
I mean, actually out in the field plowing the fucking shit.
Nah, he's not doing that. He's supervising.
Bullshit.
You can there's plenty of listen. You can look for yourself. And most of the time, the person in charge of the plantation was actually a slave. He was mainly the boss. That guy's like the CEO. It's kind of like saying you're the CEO of a company, right? You're the CEO of fucking, I don't know, Best Buy, or you're the general manager. You're not there selling cell phones and batteries. Your cashiers are doing it, right?
Bullshit. No, even in modern companies, if you got 5 fucking employees, I guarantee you, as the owner of the business, you're still working the front fucking lines. Be it the cash register, the bar, I'm just gonna go with a bar restaurant here, or waiting tables. Your damn self.
You're talking about I'm talking about a plantation in 1860 when if you have a small plantation, right? I'm talking about, this isn't even a plantation. If you have a small area of land, right? And you only have, let's say, some chickens, a cow, and that master, and he could have, first of all, he has another job. He's doing something else. He might be a politician. He might be a lawyer. He might own another business. He is not in the field getting down with the damn Grim Reaper thing, chopping it and milking the cows. I think you're making a big, I mean, look, I get what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from, but you are talking about most white Southern farmers that are busting their ass working. I'm talking about the ones that were rich enough to own slaves. A poor Billy Bob Jean can't afford.
I'm talking about the logic of farming at the time.
So you're saying...
Yes, I am saying that if some guy owned a farm that was, let's say, 10 acres, okay? Not a very big farm, damn near a hobby farm. If he had 5 slaves and all I gave him was 1860s equipment and he wanted to turn a profit on that farm, he would have to get his ass out and plow the fucking fields himself. There's only so much a horse can do.
I see the disconnect. I see the disconnect. I'm talking about a farm small, just enough for subsistence. That's what I meant. I'm not talking about for profit. A small farm. That's all I'm saying.
He wouldn't be making enough money to have a slave anyway.
No, because that's what I'm telling you, War Corpse. I'm talking about the Southerner who's a lawyer in fucking Fayetteville, North Carolina, right? Or Raleigh, or Charlotte, North Carolina, or somewhere in Georgia. He's a lawyer, so they're making good money, or he works at the newspaper. He's not doing that. He has his slaves doing all his work. He has 5 of them cooking his food. The woman's cooking and cleaning. He got the 4 field hands. in a really small area. I'm talking about now.
Okay,
Now,
yeah. Stop. You're going into another area. Any lawyer that had slaves, any businessman that had slaves, just to tend to his personal needs, was not living on a farm. They were living in a metropolitan area.
There were not a lot of metropolitan
food.
Area. That is not that we're gonna have to stop. That is just madness.
Really.
I'm talking about a small farm in the South. A small house with some. You gotta understand something. Do we know what time period we're talking about? You know, it's the South still looks like that. If you ever drove through the South still looks like that. I'm sorry. I'm from a big city, but you know, I'm not a farm guy. You know, I admit that. You know, but you know, let's be real. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, obviously, to go back, if they have a plantation full time, they have 20+ slaves. Yes, the master is out there supervising them on top of everything. Is he giving them a hand? Maybe, maybe not. Yes, he's out on the farm all day long. He's working. He's disciplining them. He's doing all these things. You're right. He's there all day long. I was talking about a small subset, you know. But yeah, and again, like I said, you're right. The white, the most of the South were poor whites, and they're busting their ass on the farm. You're 100% right.
And again, the South would have had to abolish slavery if they wanted to trade with England, which was the biggest European power at the time. So either way, slavery fucking ends.
But then
fought this war for nothing.
Who would have ended the slavery? Who would have ended
that?
The president? The Congress would?
No, out of survival. No,
but I know
if the South, here's the thing. All Lincoln would have had to do is say no trade embargo. The South has to give their cotton to somebody or sell their cotton to somebody. France hated slavery. England hated slavery. They're the two biggest powers of the day. Germany, I believe, hated slavery. Okay?
So
they wouldn't have traded with a slave nation. Britain even said this. Britain even had... The only reason Britain fucking considered the South was because they just wanted to have a little bit of a revenge shot on the colonies that beat the shit out of them.
And they wanted to make money if they thought they can make money. And you're right, it is mainly they could take a shot at the South. But let me flip it the other way. Let's turn the table. First of all, there's no way in 30 years or 4 years that the South were just gonna that the Congress is gonna be like, all right, you know what, slavery's abolished, because even when it was abolished,
they wouldn't have had a choice.
Oh God. Listen, how about this, right? What if the South won the Civil War?
Okay.
Then what would have happened? Would slavery would have stopped in the North? Or would it have expanded up into Virginia and the states that already, as you mentioned 100 times, that still had slavery, the border states that you've mentioned 1,000,000 times, would they have just stopped having slavery if they're all making money? No. It would. If the South won the Civil War, how would it have stopped? There would be no reason. And guess what? Then England has to play ball.
No, they have to. I can destroy this in a minute. Okay, let's say the South wins the Civil War. They win it. And let's also go further and say the Emancipation Proclamation doesn't happen. Let's even go further and say the 13th Amendment of the Constitution doesn't happen, which outlawed slavery in the States. It still fails. Europe, England, France, they're not going to trade with a slave nation. England is unbelievably anti-slavery at this point. So is France. Okay? What are they going to trade with us so they can't produce on their own? Like, what is the good? Like what, cotton? Well, half the time, cotton shipments would be wrecked.
Tobacco, sugar. That, by the way, that was going on in the Caribbean by the way, that had actually more slaves, much more than we did. Brazil, the Caribbean, sugar, tobacco. They were addicted to tobacco and sugar. They could have got cotton. England could have got cotton from India. That's fine, but they were still getting a lot of goods via the slave trade. I mean, we're making some crazy assumptions. Like, yeah, do I think slavery? Obviously. I mean, would it have eventually ended? Of course, it would eventually ended. I mean, come on, but we don't know that, and it would, and it's not this notion that oh my God, you know, once it came to the point where they. Oh, by the way, who shot first? They did, right? Okay, so once you got there, and once you had the first battle, it was very hard to pull out, and because the whole time Lincoln's thinking, and his generals for that matter, McClellan, the dumb fuck that he is, they thought we're just going to wrap this up anytime soon. You know, it just, all I'm saying is once you started, you know, I don't know. How could Lincoln have avoided, the only way Lincoln could have avoided the Civil War is if he didn't get elected. Because after he got elected, 7 states succeeded. That's the only thing. If the Whig Party still lasted, if the Republican Party never started, then maybe then the Civil War is avoidable. At that point, it was a combination of things. It was politics, economics, but it all comes from one thing. If there was no slavery, there's no war. That's it. There's not even I can't even debate with anybody that, because there would be no reason to succeed. Because if the South didn't have slavery, that would have been the end of it. What would they have succeeded for? For what?
You know, if Lincoln had recalled the federal troops from Fort Sumter in the, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months, whatever that they gave him, there would have been no war.
Oh, so he's supposed to say
all Lincoln had to do was impose a trading embargo, and that would have avoided the war.
Maybe.
Would have crushed the Confederacy. What the fuck else did the Confederacy have? What the fuck else did the South have except raw textiles? That's it.
I had tobacco and sugar.
Oh my
God. The slave collectively all the slave states, all the farming states had that stuff. Yeah, look, I'm not debating with you. I mean, to say a trade embargo is silly, because by the time England was out, you might as well have had a trade embargo. They were already basically embargoing them, and it didn't work. I mean, it was going on. This wasn't like you're saying something that was already going on.
The South would have never won over and never gotten a British alliance. They were a slave state. Britain hated slavery.
But that's not what was happening. I agree with you, but that's not what happened. They were in until they saw the South was going to lose. Then they got out.
No. What happened is Lincoln started the Civil War, and Britain saw it as a chance to get revenge because we had whipped their ass twice. Well, actually, 1.5 times.
Yeah, 1.5. You're talking about the War 1812. Yeah, we got everything we wanted.
Yeah, we got our ass kicked.
Got Washington burned. But yeah, no, I got you. But that counts, though, right? We won.
No, they were looking for revenge. That's why they sent them the fucking warships that we discussed an hour ago.
I got you. I got you, but it's just too much.
They're not going to enter. And they entered in a time of war too. Keep that in mind. If the United States had just said, you know what, you're out, and the Confederate States had entered into peaceful negotiations with England, England would have said, "Fuck you! You're a slave country. Fuck you." England. The only reason they entertained the South was because they were fighting, again, the one country that had bitch slapped them and won.
I mean, like I said, this. I mean, you're going back to the England thing. What I'm saying is, this war did not start at Fort Sumter. This was an issue that was going on in this country or this region for about 200 years prior to this. And each piece of legislation that we made, every major piece of legislation, every compromise had to do with slavery. So even if Lincoln did some embargo, the South would have fought back. They would have been like, no, who the fuck are you to do that? I mean, it's like we don't know if they would have fought back, but they did enough to not want to be to play game, to play anymore. And we have to remember something else. Look, we got way away from this. We're talking hypotheticals. What would England? You don't know. I don't know. We don't know what they would have did. Let's just be real. We don't know. Besides slavery, what did Lincoln say? Right? He wanted to protect the Union. We all agree that, right? Because in his opinion, the Declaration of Independence was a contract between the states, because before the Civil War was these United States, after the Civil War was the United States. We actually became united. That's up for debate, but be that as it may. And I just want to explain, and there's something else in the Constitution, right, that a lot of people point to. And if I may, I'll just read one line, and it's in the, for you, if you have a computer, you could pull it up. In the Constitution, Article 1, so you don't have to go very far, Section 10, it says and a lot of this could be before that, you could look into it, but it says no state shall enter any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters above. Then it's talking about money and stuff like that. That's what it says. It doesn't say, hey, if you don't like who gets elected, you get to succeed from the nation. And that's a highly debatable topic in and of itself. I'm not asking you right now to agree with that or not. I'm saying what gets pointed to behind the logic of what Lincoln was thinking. Because I'm not going to get into a thing that we would never have time to get into a thing whether a state could succeed or not. Because personally, I could care less. If Texas or California want to leave, I'm inclined to let them. Today, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just saying. But I don't know. War Corps, you drain the shit out of me. I also I would have liked to have been a little more prepared. It's just such a massive topic. I mean, it's a.
That.
Yeah.
We've been dancing around this, and we've been dancing around slavery, and was Lincoln the fucking Jesus Christ of slavery, or the Moses of slavery, and let all the fucking blacks go. He actually said that if he could save the Union without ending slavery, he would do it.
He said his first inaugural address, I know.
As for your last point, no state can enter into a treaty. Well, here's the thing. This is what I've always believed. The United States is like a club, and all these states, which are members of the club, have agreed to abide by certain rules. But here's the thing. I also think they have the right to leave and be left to their own devices. The Civil War proved my point that all you have to do is literally do nothing. Lincoln couldn't handle the fact that states left. He wanted to keep that union beyond all costs, and all he did was sign about 600,000 Americans, young American men, to death. That's all he accomplished. That's all he did.
Now we have one country. I mean, he didn't want to. Look, I know how many people died in every war we had, and there's no such thing as a good war. Even though you said World War II was, but at the end of the day, it sucks because you lose people. I've lost guys. I've had family members also in Vietnam, and in the Korean War, you know what I mean, that thankfully came back. But I've lost guys, you know, it's never a good thing, and I don't blame, you know, because you know what it comes down to when there's an argument or dispute, one person thinks they're right, and so does the other person, and you know, maybe, you know, was it all for the better? I don't know. Do we still have problems today because of the Civil War? Yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. So, I mean, I wish I had the answer to what would have been if this didn't happen or that didn't happen. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, man. It's a tough question.
All I can say is that, you know, I've studied the Civil War, and I've studied it in detail, and the whole Southern economy couldn't have taken an embargo. All it would have taken was that, and Lincoln could have avoided all of this. It's just he didn't like the idea of a split country. And all states, every state has entered this union peacefully. My thought is they should be allowed to leave this union peacefully. You didn't fight to get in. Why in the fuck should you have to fight to get out?
I mean, yeah, that's another issue, but I mean, like I said, we could agree, disagree. I think that's insane. I think that's a super simplistic view that Lincoln could have avoided the Civil War just by putting an embargo. I mean, we went back and forth like that for an hour. So that's, I hear you, man, but I mean, I don't agree with you. So you said your points, I said my points. So we just have to agree to disagree on that point. But what I will say, what I do like about Lincoln is that somehow, I'm not, obviously for me personally, I would never discount the deaths, but he got everything he wanted, and it was the biggest mess in America up until a point, and probably ever in America, at least in this country alone.
No, he didn't. No,
he got everything he wanted, except he got a bullet in the head.
And he got the 13th Amendment about a year after he died.
Yeah, but he got shot. That's why he couldn't do it. We don't know what his Reconstruction plan would have looked like because he got shot in the head, and he was followed by one of the worst presidents of all time, and Andrew Johnson, ranked among some of the worst presidents. But that's I'm not
the worst.
That's a whole other thing. One of the worst that he's normally ranked by historians as one of the worst. But you know, like I said, I don't know. It was a hell of a discussion.
Well, like I said, it's fuel for thought. My personal thoughts on Lincoln is that he is ranked way above where he should be in U.S. presidents. I think he is a warmonger, and to be brutally honest, he fought a war that didn't need to be fought. There are two wars in American history that I think needed to be fought. One was the Revolution. The other was World War II. Outside of that, the War of 1812, maybe because Britain was being a dick and invading. But outside of that, not so much. He could have ended the war without a single human life lost.
Too bad. It's just a shame that the South had to shoot at us. See, they could have just let him drop off the food and let him be done with it.
And he could have evacuated the fort 2 weeks before they shot.
Yeah. I mean, we already discussed that. He's not leaving federal. That's like, oh, California wants to see. Oh, we're gonna let all our troops. We're gonna take all our troops out of your state, and you guys can do what you want.
Again, California peacefully entered the union. If they want to fucking leave, then let them.
Okay, but we have bases there. So what happens?
That would be a great boon to the United States because we don't have their crippling debt.
I agree. I would love to get rid of California, Texas, except for one question: what do we do with all the military bases there? Just leave?
Yeah. Honestly,
all the money they make? Are they going to pick up Camp Pendleton, and where are they going to put it? Where can they put it?
Honestly, why we have military bases in Germany, I am dumbfounded.
No, I'm talking about California.
Okay,
Camp Pendleton's out there. That's
I don't know,
the second
move to
biggest Marine
fucking
base.
Nevada.
Get rid of them. Bring them to
fucking
fucking.
Nevada.
I think we should put them in Minnesota. What do you think?
Fine, fuck it.
Get some cold weather training.
God. Move them to the Iron Range. That'll get you hardened.
Oh man. I hope War Corpse. I still love you, man. You're still one of my favorite YouTubers.
But no, I'm sorry, but no. If you entered peacefully, you should be able to leave peacefully. And that means if we gotta move fucking military bases up to the Iron Range in Minnesota, okay, fine. Just in case the Canadians ever decide to attack.
You gotta watch out for them. They're just waiting.
I gotta look out for the Canadian bloodlust. Alrighty, I think we've debated this thoroughly.
Yeah,
enough.
we
or
got it.
Or at least for this session. So this is where I'm going to end this. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone for commentary. I'll see everyone later.